I have been testing a lot of lifetime relationships. So, relationships with real spirited beings here over a lifetime. So, it would be the sum of the interactions and exchanges I'll be having with them while here in this realm. And it's very enlightening what comes out of it, what comes through the auras that I've been scanning with the quantum app I'm working with. It gives you a lot of information very quickly. So I've been mostly testing my good relationships, people I'm like friends I'm in touch with, real spirited beings who are inspiring me here in the game and who I've been recognizing as well on the path, on the journey. And it's been interesting to see whenever there is a psychic connection, and if this psychic connection is more matrix based or if it's connected to the beyond. If there is like a psychic matrix access in the relationship and the experience I have with different beings, if it's a matrix psychic connection, if there is any healing, and if this healing is connected to the all, or if it's more a matrix type of healing, if there is affection, and again, is it like a true intensity affection or a false affection stripe connected to the matrix? And with these colors, we can always ask ourselves, is it going to be used to fool us or not? Many times, and that's what is also being sold by the entertainment industry. It's this kind of very surface type of relationship and love that doesn't go beyond, that stay quite 3D. Sometimes that can imitate the beyond. There is sometimes some imitation that you can also see in the auras, some imposter kind of consciousness as well. And healing is generally my favorite to be finding in any aura. And it's one of my favorite type of experience when there is true healing in a relationship or in an experience I'll be having. You'll be also able to pick up strong alliances with the intensity that is of color that is appearing on the aura, to be differentiated with some more pale drained colors, for example. So the intensity is very interesting as well, to also notice who is bringing new energies to my reality. And are these energies connected to the matrix? Are they coming from the matrix, or are they opening up to the greater all? And it's also been interesting to test the relationship some beings have or will be having with me over a lifetime here, and see what comes up as well, and see if there is healing for them, if there are new energies, inspiration from the work I'm putting. It can also be validating. Especially in a realm where we're not always aware of the exact impact we are having on others, and others are not always conscious also of the positive impact, or sometimes also the negative impact it can be having on us. So it can be really validating and very interesting and very surprising. So if you are working with a quantum app and you have these options available to you, you can also spend a bit of time to test a lot of different things for your own life and come back to the result as well, because it's a lot of information in a very in a very short amount of time. And the auras are also changing. If we change timelines, they're really forever changing. So experiencing healing in a relationship with a strong ally is a very positive experience to be having here. Now you're also going to see on the aura if there is any deceiving aspects or aspects that kind of can overshadow some of the positive aspects. Each relationship over a lifetime is very unique, especially when it's happening between two eternal consciousnesses here. It's really a dance, and the sum of all the frequency that create who we are here. So it's interesting to see what is showing up and how it expresses itself as well. We can see if in a relationship there is a deceiving aspect that's going to create maybe a little bit of anger, or because the other person is in cognitive dissonance or in denial or is struggling with some deceiver aspects. We can also see if there are dark spots, darkened healing. So if the healing is darkened, so not the full bright light. So which shade of healing is it? It's always interesting, and there are many nuances. Is there darkness? Is there overshadowing? Depending on the color, it's going to be interesting. Is there matrix programming? Is there fake matrix love? Who is bringing anxiety? And on which level as well? Where will you be finding the control energy? Now, a control aspect can be only 15% over a lifetime of your experience with someone, but it can be really, really problematic at the moment where in your experience with that person, the mind control aspect kind of takes over and becomes really problematic. Now, there are some auras, not a lot, but just a few, where I found a really yucky, heavy mind control color in my first pool. I read that also as a warning that maybe not all the relationship is about mind control, but there was something that the quantum app was really working in collaboration to let me know about these beings and the influence they had and have maybe on my mind. So probably the control energy is my least favorite to find in aura, and I'm quite wary of it. If I find it, it's never random, and it means something, and it means that there will be an unpleasant aspect to the experience. So even if it's small in an aura, it's still quite concerning to be finding it there. And it doesn't feel nice either to as an experience. I mean, for an attempt of mind control over your mind, and all reels have dealt with so many of these, and still are, and still will be. Now it's also interesting to see if there is a beta sex kitten aspect to any type of relationship. It can also show an attempt of programming being triggered. And what I find really, really interesting is that I found that you can be getting along on many different levels with somebody, on the emotional level, on the sentient level. It vibes, you have a psychic connection with them, they are loving towards you, you get along in the communication you have with them, you sometimes you can even merge psychically with each other, and so energetically it works, but it won't be working exactly with the path you are both choosing. It can be, someone who is doing the work and someone who is not doing the work. It's often that. I mean, it often comes to to that simple little summary. And therefore, they are unresolved in many aspects, maybe letting themselves being puppeted and falling in the category of the dark reals, which are plenty here. And so the experience will be interesting, fun, and pleasant on many aspects, but the quality of the lifetime experience will be really overshadowed by basically different alien groups who are hiding behind any of us if we don't do our diligent work, and who are always recruiting people, thought injecting them, mind controlling them. And I mean, everybody here is under a certain amount of mind control. So you have to find out how much you are under, how much other people are under, and a lot of time also to make sure that your close entourage as real empathy, as it's a safeguarding ability here, giving us the motivation to work on our ego as well when the feedback we're getting is not so nice. So we get, if even if it works on many different aspects, there is this overshadowed psychic, sometimes bound, that is infiltrated by dark ET groups. And a lot of the reals are also disconnected from many aspects of themselves, lacking understanding about what true spiritual warfare is about. And it's really weird realm here, because you have your daytime reality, surface 3D levels, but you do feel that there is so much more to your experience, and you do feel the battle on so many levels every day. So it's really interesting, and you do feel the influences around you, how the matrix tries to trigger your programming, how other reals or other people are sent into your life to derail you, encouraging you to get sidetracked in so many different ways as well. So it's important to be keeping on separating from the matrix programming, which many reals are not always succeeding to do. And one of the most important understanding here is to understand handling dynamics, right? When you reread your life under that perspective, a lot of aspects make a lot of sense, right? You can read a lot of the influences that have reached you until now in a very new form, and some enduring influences you can cope with, and some they are too intrusive and you need to protect from them and from the harmful effect. We see that with the mental health of celebrities who deal with all the aspects we the reals are dealing with, but sometimes on a more heightened level, because the level of shame really goes very deep for them, and it's very hard to extract. I mean, maybe even when they try, the contracts they are under maybe in the way and opening the door for more targeting to to reach them. So even if some beings are extremely strong, they are really brutalized by what's happening to them. So we find also different reals who are very puppeted, and a lot have dark bleed through from the secret space programs and their involvement in daytime covert and overt projects, and also nighttime ones. I also find some control energy in reals who are programmed to be handlers. I mean, we can find this programming in most of us, but it's not gonna, you can contain this kind of programming and work through it. It becomes more difficult when never really struggling with difficult ego patterns, because it creates shortcomings, it distorts the truth very much. I've been in contact with some real extremely distorting what was happening and shifting blames in their own mind because of very strong ego structures. And I felt that, and I understood that you cannot really build anything solid with these kind of reels, at least on my path with who I am. It's not going to be my crowd, and it becomes a problem. Ego is also very much used by dark ET faction. That's what they target the most. They target the ego to get you to be reactive. They seduce your ego to recruit you as a handler. So it's really fascinating. So different relationships over a lifetime here we have with others are used for accessed MK Ultra triggering, reprogramming, keeping you in your programming, keeping you looping. And it's not gonna always appear very clearly. It does sometimes when there is like a lot of shadow or a lot of anger or different things like that. But sometimes the engineering here use some relations that can be pretty good in different aspects, but they will be a big red flag. Like, for example, a lack of empathy, always going to be used. You cannot have somebody who doesn't have empathy in your close circle if you don't want to suffer here. If you want to suffer, then probably a good choice to have them. So that's a very important aspect to be made sure of, because these beings are not safe beings. Even if they are connected to the all, some can be very asleep to what reality they are in here, and they can be under heavy matrix programming, and it's gonna play a role like containing and holding the essence of them here, and they will be kept inside the matrix AI controller timelines. Some of them also embrace victimhood consciousness and will never really pierce through that. Some dark reals have very dark sides because they've been choosing, or sometimes it can be, so sometimes, no, I think it's a choice more than a lack of choice. Some are very talented dark beings and they're very old, and they lead with manipulation in many areas of their lives. They are very hooked with the matrix mainframes, and if they have real gift and real abilities, these might be used against you if they are sent into your reality as handlers. They're gonna have this saboteur energy to them, gonna deliberately hook into you to create addictive patterns and all kind of things, including with practices such as love bombing, right? So paying you compliments that are seated in an hidden agenda and that may be over exaggerated. That's also the category where you find the dark Jedis and the dark, very old beings. So with these, depending on who you are, but you probably won't have such a pleasant experience with them because they're courted and puppeted and used for so much darkness, and they have no idea that they are dark. That's one of the main problem here, that it's not clear in the mind of most of the dark beings that they are used and recruited by darkness so many times in a day. So it's very interesting to notice whenever we're getting along on many different levels, we understand each other somehow, but we're not good for each other timelines. We find psychic matrix horizontal access, we find dark insert, dark use, dark layers sometimes. Other dark forces are also in the game. Up until possession, of course, we can find anger. Sometimes we also find very good aspects happening in the relationship over a lifetime, but if you're dealing with an unresolved real, not doing the work, the relationship cannot really deepen, and you will feel it. I have some good relationships with some darker reals here, or let's say unresolved reals. And I also find interesting that some relationships that I scanned with former handlers over a lifetime were not good at all. And in this case, I'm thinking about a beta sex kitten handler of mine that I met probably 10 years ago, and where, well, she was using mainly seducing love bite types of method to get you in her hive And but the relationship in itself didn't have much to it, except I had a psychic bond with her because I could read her psychically to a point, but she was also using some manipulation, psychic manipulation as well. And I remember it was sometimes unbearable to stay in her company, she was also triggering a lot of MK Ultra programming and sometimes triggering that desire to escape from her, with showing that it could be really unbearable to stay in the company of her mind, especially. And this is someone who is presenting herself totally differently on social media and as a completely deluded also image of herself. Now, when this happened, that's when you see spirited original spark turning to substance for substance abuse or, escaping. And we find that a lot with real celebrities as well, who really struggle with deep layers of addictions. Now, it's a good way also to scan all of these to find the people who will repetitively make you angry because they're stuck in their programming, they're not integrating, they don't really understand fully mind control, and they don't really want to. It's a decision about how far you want to go here. Some other reels, you find that there is not much exchange on a deeper level. The color are kind of drained. You will also find sometimes some levels of heart connection. And sometimes you will find some healing aspects next to some handling aspects. So this is a little bit of a problem if there is healing in the relationship, but there is also access by dark forces that is problematic. Now, it's interesting because you can also scan your timeline over a lifetime here with people you've never really met or interacted with directly. So you can see what kind of potential is there, and it's going to tell you really fast and quick. And I think about an original spark that talks about abuse dynamic, for example, writes about it. And his work does interest me. And the auras that I pulled were systematically quite bad. And it's not only that I pulled one time, I also scanned him before, or my experience with him, and it was so interesting to find how muddy it would be. So this quickly discouraged me to look further. And for these beings, you can just, observe them from a distance without engaging with them, because your experience looks like it's not going to be the most agreeable thing with them. So I've learned that a lot on my past, that it's mainly the level of proximity I've had with some beings that has become problematic on my past at some level, and that if I adopted a much more distant stand, then it would be more okay. So it's interesting to see what comes up, what is the potential there, and also scan the relationship other people have with you is interesting. And therefore also making choices, life choices, focusing on relationships that have potential, that have healing, avoiding the mind controlling elements. but also keeping in mind that none of the relationships here are perfect. Even when they're really good, you can find some dissonances sometimes. And it's also nice to see consistencies of evidence by retesting sometime. I've also noticed that the state that I'm in, whenever scanning, is going to make maybe a little bit of a difference with the auras that I'm going to be able to pull. And this gave me the idea of a new service that I'm proposing from now, that is testing different lifetime influences of some members of the entourage, and then looking a little bit deeper into some of them, but it gives good information, especially to spot some handlers in our lives where over a lifetime it's just not gonna sustain for too long. So I added that service on my webpage, on my website, ariapercy.com. This service is called Review of Your Entourage, and I look into your relationships over your lifetimes here together with 7 persons of your entourage, and there's with you, looking if there is some healing, some intuitive psychic connection, some affection, some handling, some controlled energies, or some darkness present. It's always interesting to know more about this and to keep it in mind for also further decisions, just where we invest our time or energy. So many years up until here, and still up to this day, I have to say, but our time is being handled in so many different ways, just with the mirrored image of the matrix projecting things that we desire so much to experience here, and we are encouraged to focus in the places where we're not being respected, where we're being demeaned, where we're being fooled by some aspects. And also mainly because a lot of beings are fooling themselves too, and deceiving themselves and lying to themselves. And we all do to some degree, but some beings do it more than others. And there is a point where if you cannot speak true with somebody, then it's a dead end in the relationship. And on the contrary, if you can stay connected to that truth and explore into trust and talk about all these mind influences and aspect, then you've got something real there, especially with beings who care about overstepping your boundaries. Then I think we can really start the real deep work. I'm aware I would have had totally different result if I had done this with my entourage from 10 years ago. And it's been really encouraging to see and maybe remember sometimes that I've come a long way. And it does really make a difference to have these relationships where you can just talk truth with other beings and explore and inspire each other like this, and especially bring mutual healing, is this relationship where you do bring healing to each other mutually, are really great. And it's also very interesting to notice, the impact that we're having while we're here, while we're expressing. That's also why sometimes some beings like to hang around with us, and us with them as well.